There are some big misconceptions out there about this crazy housing market. Some creators on YouTube will often latch on to explanations and share them with other people just because it makes them feel good and not necessarily because it's demonstrably true. But let's be completely honest here. There are many things that can influence a housing market. I am often amazed when a tiny little event can cause a huge ripple in the world, and the housing market is no different. But just a little bit of research or understanding about the world can help us know when something is true, possible, or just flat out wrong. This is a tough market, and many people are justifiably frustrated that they can't get into a house. Sometimes that means people want someone to blame. Last week, another YouTuber who shall not be named said that the current housing market is the fault of two things. Oh, no. One, the online home search platforms like Zillow and Trulia, and all the investors buying up the homes in the market. I disagree. In fact, I'm going to debunk those claims and tell you what is really causing the housing crunch, which is still happening even though lumber futures have finally dropped significantly. And then I'm going to give you some tips for navigating this market if you're currently trying to buy a home. I have also heard these rumors about investors buying up all the properties for sale and making properties scarce for regular people who want to buy homes. And I believe that is happening in some places. I've seen some evidence of that, but that doesn't mean that it's happening here in Raleigh. So I decided to do a little digging to see if that was true. I pulled the tax records for 100 most recently recorded home sales in Wake County to see exactly how many of these homes were bought by corporations. I decided to look at several different price points. The most popular price point was $300,000 to $400,000, and I also looked at properties from $100,000 to $300,000. In the $300,000 to $400,000 group, I found only 7 homes that sold to corporations. That's about 7% of sales. Then I looked at the next lower price point and found the highest percentage of investor purchases at 28% of homes selling to investors. I think it's important to point out that the majority of these sales were not the types of homes that most owner-occupiers are going to be interested in. There was a decent percentage that were condos in very student-heavy areas near universities or fixer-uppers that might not even qualify for a traditional mortgage. Also, with the exception of a few sales, most of these investment properties were not bought by corporations at all, but by people with local addresses buying a second property. I don't know for sure people's motivations, but if I had to guess, I would say that so many locals here in Raleigh are struggling with this market that even though our homes have increased in value, the high competitiveness has made buying a move-up home way more stressful than many people want to deal with. If I had to guess, I would say some local homeowners are tapping into their home equity with a HELOC loan and using the opportunity to buy into a growing market without selling their current home. And let me be perfectly honest, people who have lived in Raleigh a while are probably experiencing the most stress in this market. I can't say I blame the locals for trying to get some benefit out of it. I saw 5 buyers in all of my digging over a couple of hundred properties that had New York corporate addresses. My opinion, there are more investors in the current market than we've traditionally seen, but only a bit more. They are at times competing with owner-occupiers, but honestly, not in most cases. So, on to the next assumption. Online home search apps like Zillow and Trulia are causing the buying frenzy. Zillow's been in business a long time now and has been displaying data related to home sales and expected home pricing since 2006. Now, marketing is a powerful thing for sure. It can get people to buy things they wouldn't have otherwise bought, but it's not like Zillow has changed their marketing strategy much over the years. Their strategy has always been to provide data-based information for their users in order to help their users make the best decisions possible. And this market hasn't been ongoing since they started providing their tools. It's been up and down. I'm not sure why anyone would think they were the cause of the market frenzy. The creator that suggested it didn't give any reasoning to support it. The fact is, Zillow is more of a competitor for real estate agents than it is for buyers. I think they provide very good tools for buyers and sellers, and if more brokerage provided good resources for their buyers and sellers, they wouldn't really need to be concerned with the competition. And later in this video, I'm going to talk about some tools that my brokerage has created that will give you an incredible edge when making offers and potentially save you a ton of money. But we'll get to that in just a minute. There is a reason for this current market, but it's not Zillow's amazing marketing strategy, and it's not all the investors buying into the market. I've talked about what's affecting the housing market before, but I have a few more pieces of information today that are going to help you understand what's happening and anticipate how long it may last. Although none of us really know how long this market is going to last, we just have to look at the information we have access to and make decisions based on that. And after we talk about the current conditions, we'll get to the tips for navigating it. The first thing affecting the market is still the lack of housing. housing, particularly new construction housing. But let's take a historical view of it so you get an idea of where we are now. When the market crashed in 2008, we had a huge oversupply of homes in that market. We were building way more homes than we had buyers for. People were buying on speculation. That means that buyers weren't buying homes to live in like 90% of buyers are right now. They were bidding for homes in the hopes that they could resell a year later, assuming that prices would continue to increase in value as they had been for the last few years, and they could pocket the cash. Buyers were playing a get-rich-quick scheme, looking to make a quick profit, and that rarely ends well. Right now, buyers just want a place to call home. Back in 2008 and prior to it, we had very easy lending standards, which have since been tightened dramatically. Lending is still pretty stringent, and I've seen many lenders institute even more hoops to jump through based on market trends, not less. For example, when COVID hit and they were worried about the economy, getting through loan processing became a bear because they were basically running through credit approvals twice. Once when you first applied for a loan and then making buyers do it all over again right before closing. My buyers were like, why do I have to submit this same paperwork twice? I already gave them these things. Well, the banks wanted to make sure that there was still money in your bank account and that you still had a job right before closing. Banks have been working hard through all of this to make sure that they are only lending to buyers who qualify. The house of cards eventually fell in 2008, and we all know what that looked like. This is what housing supply looked like before the last market crash and what it looks like in 2020. There are still nowhere close to the amount of supply we need to meet the current demand. Why is that? Well, back in the last crash, many builders went out of business, so we never really picked back up with building supply. Even when the economy picked back up, there simply weren't as many builders ready to get back to work. Another issue that I think plays into this is that most people in the building industry are Gen X. Millennials have not gone into contracting work the way Gen Xers did. I wasn't able to find any real information about the number of builders currently building compared to 2008, but knowing that millennials have shunned trades and knowing that many builders went out of business, I have the feeling that we just don't have enough contractors building houses right now. But that is just a guess. And then there's another issue. The demand is so much higher than it has ever been. Baby boomers are living longer due to advances in medical care. Nursing home populations have been declining over the last 10 years because boomers are increasingly choosing to age in place rather than go to a nursing home. And there are 72 million millennials, 11% more than Gen X. And millennials who came of age during the 2008 crash have waited longer to buy homes. So there's been this pent-up demand, and there are simply more people trying to buy homes all at the same time. Economists I've recently read have said that over the next 3 years, prices will continue to rise, but will do so at slower rates as time goes on. So how do we deal with it? I'm going to give you some strategies to buying a home without losing your shirt. Strategy number 1. This is the first time I've ever plugged my brokerage, and this is going to sound like an ad, but I promise you I never support anything I don't believe in. And this is not even a sponsored post. I'm not getting paid for sharing this with you. And what I'm about to tell you can save you a ton of money on your home purchase. So I just want you to know that Hunter Row has some tools that nobody else has. Hunter Row is a process improvement company first and a real estate company second. The founder, Mike Regan, started this company because he recognized that real estate brokerage was in need of some shaking up, and I'm sure many of you can agree. One of the ways he shook things up was to share our data across agents within our firm, and that data can really help our buyers make the best offers without being blind to what other types of offers are being made. Before you can understand how this affects your finances, first you need to understand a little bit about the North Carolina real estate contract. The due diligence deposit is a non-refundable deposit that buys you the right to inspect the property. If you terminate the contract for any reason or for no reason at all, the seller keeps that money. They actually cash the check as soon as we deliver it to them with the contract. So how much is due diligence? Well, another Raleigh realtor did a video last week, and he talked about the due diligence being $30,000, $40,000, even up to $75,000. That is a crazy town amount of money to lose if you find something wrong with the home. Crazy town. Well, it's a negotiated amount. So how do you know how much to offer? Any realtor can give you historic information about the sales price of recently closed homes, but we don't get to see the other terms of the contracts. The truth is, the average agent has no idea how much is being offered on average for due diligence deposits. When they advise, they're often shooting in the dark, relying on anecdotal information and their experience with their own listings if they have any. An agent friend told me they got a $75,000 $1,000 due diligence deposit. Or maybe I received one in a listing I had last month. But how common is the $75,000 deposit? You need some data to find that out. And Hunter Rowe is the only company tracking that kind of data that I know of. We track all kinds of things to provide better consultation to our clients. And I can tell you exactly what percentage of the last 100 brokerage closings had due diligence deposits over $70,000 and what types of offers more commonly came with a $15,000 deposit. So you can make an offer on real statistical evidence of those criteria in a sale. So strategy number one is simply to use a Hunter Rowe agent who can give you access to that information. Strategy number two, consider outlying areas. Competition outside of Wake County is often lower than competition within Wake County. I'm looking at our recently sold listings and I can see a few properties that sold in surrounding counties where the due diligence was only $10,000 or $15,000. Now that's not all areas, so you've got to listen to the agent guiding you if you want to make a competitive offer that will actually get accepted. But in these outlying areas, it can be a lot easier to get an offer accepted. Now, there's obviously still competition, but the competition is sometimes less. Strategy number three, and this one is really important, and it's only for homeowners who are selling a home at the same time that they're buying one. If you're planning to get your home under contract, and as soon as it is under contract, you plan to make an offer on your new home, you should absolutely get a home equity line of credit before you list your current home. This is so important. And of course, this is assuming that the lender approves you for carrying both properties. But the HELOC loan will allow you to access any equity you have in your current home before closing. So if something horrible happens, like the buyer on your current home backs out of the contract, you can still close on the new house and not risk losing that non-refundable due diligence deposit. If you like this video, you might like this video about what locals think about living in Raleigh.